The Fall Guy, I don't know what everyone is praising about it. I walked out, I couldn't take it anymore. I think it's a piece of shit. That was a joke. The Fall Guy is a damn good time, and we're gonna get into that right now.
This film has everything.
Everything?
This movie reminds me of Big Fat Liar and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. One of the closest parallels is that the main character finds a corpse in a bathroom. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Fall Guy, both movies have the same inciting incident. I was anticipating this movie for quite a while, ever since I saw the trailer for it. I mean, it looked like a damn good time. These days, however, when we see trailers for movies and we see hype, it usually doesn't meet expectations, and it's very rare when something exceeds the expectations. The Fall Guy, I think, meets those expectations very well. It's a fun movie. It's got some good action sequences. You know, not groundbreaking stunts, but it did set a record for most cannon rolls. The story goes is that a stuntman named Colt Seavers, he's falling in love with a camera operator at the beginning of the movie, and something goes wrong with the stunt. He shuts himself off from the world, although he's still keeping in shape, right? He doesn't gain any fat, just muscle. He does a shirtless scene in the movie, and he looks like fucking Thor. What? He's been in the hospital recovering from a back injury, and he hasn't missed a day at the gym. Sure, okay, let's go with that. But hey, this movie isn't portraying something that's entirely realistic. It's just supposed to be fun, right? So from there, he's coaxed into coming back to work on a movie called Metal Storm that Jodie, Emily Blunt's character, is now directing. And he's tasked with not only being the main stuntman, but find its leading actor who's in hiding because he's into some shady shit. The story and its mechanics, if you look into it too much, some of it doesn't quite hold up and is kind of flimsy in terms of, you know, why is this happen and that turn of events, etc., etc. It's not meant to have that kind of scrutiny. And I just let some of that go because it's supposed to be an amusement park ride, essentially. I mean, part of the publicity campaign of the movie is incorporating it into the Waterworld attraction at Universal Studios. And I think even Ryan Gosling showed up to one of the events, which I think the advertisement and the publicity for this movie is doing a good job. The unfortunate thing is apparently it's not doing well at the box office, and I don't know why that is because it's a damn good time. I recommend people go see it in the theater.
Yes, no, I get that.
Why? Because it's a movie you're supposed to enjoy with your friends, a crowd, etc. Yeah, you can watch it at home, wait until it comes out on streaming, but there's a difference. The cathedral-esque environment of going out into the theater, going out into a different environment that's not your own, and you're experiencing something in a public arena. And what adds to it is that you want to go to see good movies, and this is a good movie. I mean, it's not going to sweep the Oscars. However, this movie, it's essentially a campaign to get a category into the Oscars for stunts. They have been unacknowledged for so long. I don't understand how stunt awards haven't become a part of the prestigious award shows for the past 100 years. They made a good effort to bring about achievements that would be a part of the publicity campaign. That's part of why I love practical effects. Tom Cruise doing real stunts. Mad Max is doing this and that. All of that stuff is part of the meat of why you go to the movie. Now, another draw for me is Ryan Gosling. I am a fan of his. And having been a fan of Drive, which has parallels to Fall Guy as well, that main character is a stuntman in the movie, only he's the introverted version of this character, Colt Seavers, in The Fall Guy. If the character from Drive took some public speaking classes and he wasn't mixed up with the mob and illegal activities, you might find he becomes Colt Seavers.
It's a street state!
So the way that Ryan Gosling is on screen is outright charming. I mean, I can't recall him ever giving a bad performance. He's always been committed to every role that he does, despite maybe a movie doesn't work very well. I'm looking at you, Barbie.
What?
One thing that needs to be observed about Ryan Gosling, he loves his jackets. It's fantastic. Drive, obviously. The Scorpion jacket, the long shearling jacket in Blade Runner 2049. Place Beyond the Pines has a red leather jacket, and so many more. It's an adoration he has for the costumes in relation to the characters he's playing. No, it's not just dress me in a leather jacket. It's way more varied and creative in terms of the look and the design of his wardrobe.
I gotta switch it up, but I'm glad that you mentioned that. Thank you.
The chemistry that he and Emily Blunt have, they have the chemistry, right? But to me, it comes across like friendly chemistry, not romantic chemistry. That was the one thing that I think was missing from their dynamic, is sexual tension or romantic tone to their back and forth and banter, which is good. They do have chemistry as friends. I felt as though that's as far as it went. I didn't get the sense that they were a couple. And maybe it's because they're so committed to their partners in real life. And hey, good on them for that. There's one thing that I think is missing from The Fall Guy, which is that it feels like a smaller story because it takes place in one city. If they had implemented some globetrotting to the story, it's not necessarily a flaw, but it holds back a little bit of what could have been or added to the adventurous tone that the movie has, which is still good. It just could have felt bigger. And the movie costs like, what, $130 million? It doesn't feel like a movie that cost that much. That's one thing that probably went to the actors' salaries, perhaps, I could imagine. I love films that poke fun at the film industry. Singing in the Rain is one of the best films that has done this. The parodying wit are Fall Guy's strongest aspects, and not a lot of films that have movies within movies feel real. The Metal Storm movie within The Fall Guy does feel like it could be, say, a Netflix film. Hopefully better than Rebel Moon, though.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
One of the best lines in the film, Gail, the producer, she tries to acquire the audio recording of Tom Ryder's confession that he was involved in. It wasn't really a murder, it was an accidental killing of another stuntman. She tries to placate Emily Blunt's character Jodie into going along with it by saying, "Come on, let's get out of this toxic masculine environment." So that made me laugh because it paralleled Barbie's neo-feminist fantasy trip, which obviously starred Ryan Gosling. So it's like, you don't know necessarily Gosling's feelings about the ins and outs of the politics of Barbie and this. I mean, maybe it's not even coming from him at all. It's probably Drew Pearce, the writer, and David Leitch, the director. I mean, this movie is a masculine film. It's not apologetic of that. It won't be apologetic of that, and it wouldn't have worked if it had been. It's celebrating masculinity in a fun way and even a self-deprecating way. There isn't any woke stuff in it, I would say. The only reference was actually a reverse of that situation. It's anti-woke, that reference to toxic masculinity. It's coming from the bad guy, essentially, which is refreshing. Another parallel with Big Fat Liar is that the main baddie is the producer. So that's another similarity. Lee Majors was the original actor in Fall Guy, and he makes a cameo in this, and he also played the stunt coordinator in Big Fat Liar. There are a whole bunch of threads going on that connect all of these films that I've referenced that parallel each other. It's cool. I like that. I mean, you're not really going to notice that unless you're a cinematic psycho like I am.
You know nuts. He's crazy.
There is one other thing that I think is an actual flaw in the film, and it is the way that they film the stunt sequences. They don't do it all the time, but it's there enough to point it out. Here's the thing. When you film a stunt, I've noticed that the best way to film it is more or less in a wide shot. There are moments in The Fall Guy where the lens, the camera, is closer to the action, which doesn't allow for a wider depth of field. It's more shallow, which means that there's a focus on that figure doing the action. However, the action is not just about the figures fighting or whatever is going on in an action sequence. It's about the environment that they're moving around in. Batman Begins is an example of getting way too close. When you don't have the clarity of a wide shot in a sequence, then it doesn't engage the audience the same way that it would with spacious framing. Look at the best sequences of action in film history. Every quintessential scene that we reference is going to have those traits of being shot with wide angles. Do I recommend you see this film in the theater? Yes, yes, and yes. One of the reasons that I do is not only just that it's a fun experience, and you'll almost get your pants charmed off. It is also to support films like this that are actually of good quality. It is a movie that doesn't try to shove a woke message into your ears and in front of your eyes. That is refreshing. That's part of the reason to support a film like this. I could see the film gaining traction over a period of weeks, months, kind of the same way that Top Gun Maverick did. Hopefully that happens. I do. So, we did a review on The Fall Guy.
Boy, mijo.